Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. She doesn't raise her voice to be heard. Her silence makes people confess. Most people fear violence, rejection, or loss. But there's a quieter, more disarming kind of terror. The kind you feel when someone sees straight through your carefully constructed identity and doesn't flinch. That's the Sigma female. She won't chase power, she is power. Refined, quiet, unpredictable, and eerily self-contained. While others are performing, she's watching, calculating, and when she finally moves, it's never emotional, it's surgical. Here's a wild fact. Studies in behavioral psychology show that individuals who show extreme autonomy and emotional control often provoke more fear than openly aggressive personalities. Translation? The Sigma female doesn't have to lift a finger. Her presence alone can cause spiritual whiplash. She doesn't roar. She doesn't pander. She just is. And somehow, that's what makes her terrifying. So if you're expecting cliches like she's mysterious or she's independent, buckle up, because what you're about to see is the real, raw, unfiltered truth about the terrifying things all Sigma females naturally do. And no, she won't apologize for any of them. Let's begin. Number 1. They trust patterns, not apologies. A Sigma female doesn't care what you say. She watches what you do. And not just once. She watches over time, carefully, quietly. She's not impressed by pretty words or flashy promises. She's not swayed by a well-delivered apology or a sudden burst of affection after weeks of inconsistency. What she's doing, without telling you, is tracking your patterns. She doesn't believe in one-time slip-ups. She believes in behavior loops. If something happens more than once, it's not a mistake. It's who you are. That's what makes her terrifying. While most people are focused on moments, she's watching the whole timeline. She's gathering data. And once she sees a pattern that violates her internal code, she doesn't argue, confront, or even warn you. She simply categorizes you and moves differently around you. And here's the part most people don't realize. Once she sees the pattern, there's no erasing it. You can cry, beg, promise, even change, but in her mind you've been filed. Not out of bitterness, but out of cold logic. She doesn't hate you. She just doesn't trust you anymore. And she won't announce that shift. She'll still respond, still smile, still keep it polite. But the door you once had access to, it's closed, quietly, permanently. That emotional access you once took for granted, gone. Not with a bang, but with a quiet recalibration of boundaries so precise, you won't even realize what's changed until it's too late. What terrifies people most is that she gives no emotional warning signs, no outbursts, no drama, just a silent verdict. Because for her, actions don't need explanations. They are the explanation. She doesn't believe in confronting everyone about their behavior. Some people aren't worth the energy, so she lets them reveal themselves through repetition, then lets them go without a sound. It's not revenge, it's respect for herself. Number 2, they abandon sisterhood when it's rooted in delusion. A Sigma female doesn't romanticize sisterhood just because it's trendy or socially expected. She doesn't subscribe to the idea that loyalty should be automatic simply because someone shares her gender. If a group of women is rooted in drama, insecurity, competition masked as support, or fake empowerment with no real depth, she'll detach without ceremony. She doesn't owe her presence to any circle that thrives on delusion. What's terrifying is how easily she walks away from female cliques that other women cling to for identity and validation. While many find safety in numbers, she finds freedom in authenticity. And she knows that sometimes being surrounded by women doesn't mean you're empowered. It just means you're trapped in a prettier kind of toxicity. She sees through the inspirational quotes, the matching energy slogans, the curated brunches, and surface-level bonding that disappears the second real honesty enters the room, and she refuses to perform. This makes other women uncomfortable, furious even, because the Sigma female isn't threatened by exclusion. She doesn't fear being the outsider. In fact, she often chooses it. She'd rather walk alone in truth than sit in a room full of smiles that crumble behind closed doors. Her refusal to play along exposes the fragility of those who rely on sisterhood as a shield, rather than a space for real growth. And she doesn't explain herself when she leaves. No final group text, no emotional goodbye. She just disappears from the dynamic, and her absence echoes. Because deep down, everyone knows she saw something they refuse to acknowledge. And that scares people, not because she betrayed the sisterhood, but because she never needed it to define her in the first place. To her, womanhood isn't a club. It's not a performance. It's not a uniform. It's a sovereign experience. And if your version of sisterhood compromises that, she's out. Quietly, unapologetically. Number 3. They can starve their emotions like a monk when necessary. Most people feel the need to express everything, hurt, love, anger, excitement, instantly and loudly. The world is filled with over-explainers, oversharers, and emotional reactors, but a Sigma female doesn't operate that way. When necessary, she can starve her emotions like a monk in a vow of silence. She doesn't explode, she doesn't spiral. She shuts it down. And that's what makes her terrifying. It's not that she doesn't feel. She feels deeply, sometimes more than anyone else in the room. But when the situation calls for it, she has the discipline to lock those feelings in a vault and swallow the key. You won't see the heartbreak. You won't hear the rage. You won't witness the fear, because she doesn't owe you her vulnerability, especially if the environment is unsafe, manipulative, or beneath her standards. People misread it as coldness, but it's not. It's extreme emotional control. And unlike those who suppress their feelings and pretend everything's fine, she's not pretending. She's pausing, intentionally. She knows when to feel and, more importantly, when not to. That kind of restraint isn't common. It rattles people, especially those who rely on emotional outbursts to gain power or manipulate situations. You can't manipulate someone who isn't giving you anything to work with. Her silence isn't passive, it's calculated. It's not about avoiding the emotion, it's about choosing the right time and place to process it without an audience. And sometimes that processing doesn't happen for weeks, months, or even years. When it finally does, it's often in solitude, behind closed doors, where no one gets access to her internal storm. That's how she protects her power, by never letting the world see her unravel. To the emotionally impulsive, her self-containment is eerie. But to her, it's strength. Because while others are ruled by their emotions, she knows how to rule hers. Number 4. They refuse to be seen, even when the world demands it. The world we live in today screams, be visible or be irrelevant. People post every meal, every mood swing, every minor achievement, just to feel alive in the digital echo chamber. But the Sigma female doesn't play that game. She doesn't need likes, views, or external validation to feel real. She's not hiding. She's just unbothered by the spotlight. And that alone unsettles people who build their entire identity around being seen. She doesn't chase attention. She doesn't announce every move. She doesn't brand herself for the algorithm. In fact, she might do something extraordinary, then vanish as if it never happened. No humble brag, no curated highlight reel. Her silence, her invisibility is deliberate. She knows that being seen too much cheapens certain kinds of power, and she's not interested in being consumed. People don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need to be known. It disrupts the unspoken rule that visibility equals worth. But she's not anti-success. She just defines it on her own terms. Her world is built on depth, not display. Her self-worth comes from alignment, not applause. That's why she can go off-grid in the middle of a winning streak. Why she can ghost a crowd mid-clap. Why she's perfectly fine being brilliant in silence while everyone else is performing exhaustion for attention. And here's what really shakes people. When she finally is seen, it's not because she tried, it's because the silence became too loud to ignore. There's something unsettling about a woman who refuses to be consumed yet carries undeniable presence. A woman who can disappear without losing herself. While others bend to trends, she bends reality by refusing to participate in the race at all. In a world begging for attention, the Sigma female is a shadow that commands it simply by walking away. Number 5. They're brutally loyal to their inner code, not people. A Sigma female doesn't worship people. She worships principles. Her loyalty isn't based on history, blood, or how much you've done for her in the past. It's based on her internal code. And once you violate that code, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't rationalize, plead, or delay. She detaches completely. Whether you're a lifelong friend, a romantic partner, or even her own parent, if you cross that invisible line, you're out. No second chances, no grand explanation, just gone. To most people, that level of detachment feels harsh, maybe even cruel. But to her it's necessary, because while others are busy staying loyal to dysfunction out of guilt, nostalgia, or obligation, she stays loyal to herself. And that makes her terrifying. Not because she's heartless, but because she's disciplined. She won't sacrifice her mental clarity, emotional peace, or self-respect to keep a bond alive that's already become a battlefield. And what throws people off is how calm she is about it. There's no dramatic exit, no public fallout. One day they're close, the next, radio silence. That's how loyalty to an internal code works. It doesn't require applause. It requires alignment. And if someone forces her to choose between betraying herself or betraying them, she'll choose them every time. She'll betray you before she ever betrays herself. It's not personal, it's principle. That's the difference. Her inner code might be invisible to others, but to her, it's law. It's made up of values she's carved out through solitude, pain, experience, and deep reflection. Not trends, not social rules. So when someone expects her to bend for the sake of harmony, family, or tradition, they're in for a shock. She's not wired that way. Her loyalty has to be earned and maintained. No title gives you a pass. And that's what makes her so rare and so feared. You can't buy her, manipulate her, or guilt her into staying. Her loyalty isn't a gift. It's a mirror, and once it breaks, it never gets reassembled. Number 6, they study others like case files, not friends. A Sigma female doesn't rush into friendships, relationships, or alliances. She's not impressed by charm, titles, or first impressions. While most people are busy trying to bond quickly, oversharing, attaching, building fast intimacy, she's observing, quietly, intently. You think you're connecting, but she's still collecting data. She studies you like a case file. Every word, every action, every inconsistency is mentally logged. How you treat people when no one's watching. What you do when your ego is bruised. Whether your apologies are patterns or performances. She notices what you laugh at, what you avoid, what you try too hard to be. And she does it all without announcing it. You won't even realize you're being studied until she's already formed her conclusions. This unsettles people because they're used to being either judged too quickly or accepted too easily. But she does neither. She gives nothing away at first. Not her full trust, not her loyalty, not even her emotional availability. You're on a silent probation period, whether you know it or not. And if you fail the test, you don't get a warning. You just get downgraded, quietly, permanently. What terrifies people most is her lack of emotional investment in the beginning. You think you're forming a bond, but she hasn't decided yet. You're still under review. Not because she's cold, but because she's precise. She's not afraid of being alone, so she has no urgency to rush someone into her life just to fill space. And once she decides you're not compatible with her values or energy, she won't argue, explain, or fight to fix it. She'll just move accordingly. You won't get drama, you'll get distance. To the outside world it might seem calculated, but for her, it's protection. It's efficiency. It's how she keeps her circle clean and her energy uncontaminated. Because to a Sigma female, people aren't just people. They're patterns, frequencies, and intentions. And before she lets you in, she needs to be sure you won't corrupt the peace she fought hard to build. Number 7. They rewire their identity without warning. A Sigma female doesn't marry her identity. She wears it like a jacket, useful for a season, but never permanent. While most people spend their lives reinforcing who they think they are, clinging to labels and roles for stability, she evolves like a moving target. One day she's running a business, commanding boardrooms and shaping strategy. The next, she's disappeared to some remote place, completely unplugged, painting, writing, rebuilding from scratch. No warning, no explanation, no need for applause. This ability to shift so fluidly terrifies people who define themselves by predictability. Most need consistency to feel secure, career titles, social roles, a familiar routine. But she doesn't. For a Sigma female, identity is a tool, not a cage. She reinvents when she feels the season has expired, not when the world gives her permission. She doesn't ask, "What will people think?" She asks, "Does this still fit who I'm becoming?" What unnerves people is not just the change, but how clean it is. There's no dramatic crisis, no long announcement. She just wakes up one day, senses it's time, and moves. Friends might not hear from her for months. Colleagues might find her seat empty. Family might be stunned by how easily she let go of a version of herself they thought was permanent. But to her, there is no loss, only alignment. She isn't afraid to be misunderstood in the process. That's what gives her power. While others are trying to keep their brand consistent, she's shedding identities like old skin. And that kind of freedom is terrifying to anyone still clinging to who they were 10 years ago out of fear. Her life is a series of quiet evolutions. No press release, no applause, just one version of herself dying so another can live. It's not chaos, it's clarity. And it scares people because it shows just how much they're holding on to lives they've outgrown. Number 8. They can withhold love like a god testing mortals. A Sigma female doesn't give love the way most people do. It's not casual. It's not automatic. It's not handed out like a free sample to anyone who shows interest. Her love is rare, potent, and deeply transformative, but only if you've earned it. And earning it isn't about grand gestures or empty charm. It's about showing up with integrity, consistency, and real depth. Until then, she will withhold it. Entirely. Without guilt. Without hesitation. To many this feels cold, almost brutal, but to her, it's sacred discipline. She understands the power of her love, and she refuses to waste it on people who can't carry its weight. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about discernment. She doesn't weaponize affection, she guards it. Because once she gives it, she gives fully, without pretense, without half measures. So if she's holding back, it means she's still observing, still testing the energy, still deciding if your presence adds to her peace or threatens it. What people don't realize is that she feels love intensely, but she'll sit with that love in silence rather than give it to someone unworthy. She'll choke on it before she offers it to someone who hasn't earned access. Not because she's broken, but because she's mastered the art of restraint. She knows that loving the wrong person can cost more than being alone ever will. It's terrifying to those who are used to instant emotional rewards. They expect love to be freely given just for trying, but with her, it doesn't work that way. Her affection is not a default, it's a privilege. And you don't get it just because you want it. You get it because your energy proves you're worthy of it over time. And when she does finally give it, you'll know it wasn't out of convenience, it was out of conviction. And that's what makes it so rare and so dangerous to those who only know how to consume, not cherish. Number 9. They disarm people by seeing right through the performance. Most people walk through life wearing masks, pretending to be more confident, more kind, more put together than they really are. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's pure survival. But a Sigma female doesn't buy it, not for a second. While everyone else is responding to the performance, she's already staring into what's underneath, the insecurity, the fear, the unresolved wounds hiding behind the curated personality. And she won't play along. She doesn't expose you publicly. She doesn't mock your act. What she does is far more unsettling. She simply refuses to acknowledge the mask at all. She'll talk to the real you, even if you haven't introduced that version of yourself yet. And that makes people deeply uncomfortable, because now they're seen in a way they didn't consent to be seen. You can't flirt your way past her. You can't impress her with a title. You can't distract her with charm or trendiness. None of it sticks. She sees the cracks in the smile, the tension in the voice, the performance in the posture. And once she sees it, she never unsees it. That level of clarity strips away illusions, and for many that's terrifying. Because if you're not ready to be real, being around someone who demands realness without asking is unsettling at best and humiliating at worst. What makes her even more unnerving is how calm she is about it. She doesn't call you out or confront you. She just interacts with the part of you that you try to hide. It feels like emotional X-ray vision, and it disarms people who are used to controlling how they're perceived. In a world where appearances can be carefully engineered, the Sigma female's perception is a threat, not because she wants to harm you, but because she simply won't lie to herself about who you really are. And that silent refusal to participate in the performance, That's what makes her so dangerously unforgettable. Number 10. They intimidate the alpha by refusing the game entirely. Alpha personalities thrive on hierarchy. They need to dominate, to be admired, to constantly prove their status, whether it's in a boardroom, a social circle, or even in a relationship. They're wired for competition, for power plays, for one-upmanship. But when a Sigma female enters the picture, the entire game breaks down because she doesn't play it. She doesn't try to beat the alpha. She just refuses to step into the arena altogether. And that's what makes her so deeply unsettling. She doesn't need to assert dominance because she's already operating on an entirely different plane. She doesn't seek approval. She doesn't chase control. She doesn't need to be above anyone because she's not even standing on the same ladder. While alphas are obsessed with climbing, she's somewhere else entirely, building her own structure on her own time in silence. That refusal to compete is what terrifies them. Alphas don't know how to engage with someone who won't respond to their usual power moves. They're used to resistance, rivalry, submission, or admiration. The Sigma female gives them none of that. She's unshakable, unreadable, and worst of all, unimpressed. She's not trying to win. She's not trying to belong. She's just existing on her own terms. And that makes her unpredictable. You can't control what you can't access. What really rattles the alpha is the quiet authority she carries. Not loud, not boastful, just solid. Her presence alone threatens their ego because it proves power doesn't have to be loud to be real. She doesn't need a title, a crown, or an audience. She just is. And that challenges the entire foundation of how the alpha defines strength. In the end, the alpha thrives on being at the top of the food chain. But the Sigma female, she's not even in the food chain. She's somewhere in the wild, untamed and unreachable. That's not just intimidating, it's existentially threatening to anyone whose identity is built on being the leader. Because how do you dominate someone who isn't even playing the same game? You don't. You just lose the illusion of control. Number 11. They walk away while you're still talking. When a Sigma female is done, she doesn't make a scene. There's no shouting, no long emotional monologue, no final text explaining her boundaries. She just leaves. And sometimes she doesn't even wait for you to finish your sentence. If she senses the energy shift, if something feels off, disrespectful, fake, or simply expired, she'll walk away. Instantly. Mid-conversation. No explanation. It's not out of spite. It's not about power games. It's about clarity. She knows the exact moment something becomes unworthy of her presence. And once she hits that internal threshold, she won't stick around for the closing credits. That's what makes it terrifying. There's no warning, no build-up. 1 minute you think everything is normal, the next she's gone, and the door isn't just closed, it's vanished. What leaves people spinning is the lack of closure. She doesn't believe in begging to be understood or waiting for the perfect goodbye. To her, if the energy no longer matches her truth, continuing the interaction becomes a form of self-betrayal. So she leaves before she explains. She chooses peace over performance, and that kind of exit hits harder than any argument ever could. People who are used to emotional theatrics don't know how to process this. They replay everything. They look for the last thing they said. They scroll through old messages. They wait for the follow-up that never comes. But it won't. Because when she walks, she doesn't look back. Not out of bitterness, but because she already made peace with the ending before you even noticed the beginning of the goodbye. Her detachment isn't cold, it's final. And it teaches a brutal truth. Not everyone leaves loudly. Some leave silently, surgically, and with so much self-respect that it feels like a spiritual exile. That's the Sigma female. When she walks away while you're still talking, she's not being rude. She's just already moved on, mentally, emotionally, energetically. The rest is just noise. Number 12. They don't need a relationship. They choose it strategically. Sigma females don't enter relationships out of fear, loneliness, or pressure. They don't need a partner to feel validated, fulfilled, or emotionally anchored. That's what makes them so intimidating. Their emotional independence is unnerving to people who are used to being needed. A Sigma female doesn't chase love, and she definitely doesn't beg for it. If she chooses to be with someone, it's not out of desperation. It's strategy, purpose, alignment. She's not anti-love. She can love deeply, fiercely, and with full presence. But she doesn't use relationships to fill emotional voids. She fills those herself. That means if you're with her, it's because you add to her life, not because she needs you to hold it together. And that kind of energy flips the usual relationship dynamic on its head. Most people are either looking for someone to save or someone to save them. She's looking for someone who doesn't disrupt her peace. What throws people off is her ability to walk away from romantic connections without spiraling. She's not addicted to attachment. If the relationship turns toxic, stagnant, or draining, she'll unplug without the usual drama. Not because she didn't care, but because she refuses to stay in anything that dilutes her essence. She won't try to force love where there's no reciprocity. She won't beg someone to evolve. She'll just exit and rebuild, alone if necessary. Being with her means understanding you're not her center, you're her chosen companion. There's a difference. She doesn't seek someone to complete her because she never felt incomplete to begin with. That's why her love hits differently. It's clean, non-possessive, and shockingly clear. She's not afraid to be alone. And that's the scariest part, because people can't manipulate someone who doesn't fear solitude. In the end, she doesn't want to be saved, fixed, or owned. She wants to be met. And if you can't do that, she won't try to make you. She'll just move on, and you'll feel the absence of someone who never once depended on your presence to feel whole. They call her intimidating, cold, mysterious. But that's only because the Sigma female plays by rules no one else is bold enough to write. She doesn't perform. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't adjust herself to fit anyone's comfort zone. Not even for love, not even for legacy. Her power lies in what she withholds, in what she walks away from, in what she refuses to give voice to. While others chase validation, she chooses alignment. While others beg to be seen, she disappears and becomes unforgettable in the process. Every move she makes is intentional, every silence a message, every detachment a decision. Not because she's heartless, but because she's sovereign. She doesn't bend to chaos, she outgrows it. She doesn't scream her truth, she embodies it. And that's what terrifies people the most. She exists without needing to be needed. In a world where identity is glued to visibility, she remains rooted in mystery. In a culture obsessed with dominance, she opts out entirely. In a society addicted to comfort, she chooses inner discipline, even if it means being misunderstood. So no, the Sigma female isn't terrifying because she's cruel. She's terrifying because she's free. If you found yourself rewatching parts of this video, nodding in silent agreement or thinking, finally, someone said it, then you already know this content speaks to something deeper. So don't just scroll on. Hit that subscribe button, because this isn't your average, watered-down content. This is for the rare ones, the ones who think differently, move differently, feel deeply but walk alone. Like this video if it made you pause. Share it with someone who needs to understand the Sigma female's power, whether that's a friend, a partner, or someone who underestimated her. And most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear what resonated with you, what part hit hardest, or what you'd love to see covered next. This isn't just a channel. It's a space for the unseen, the unbothered, and the unapologetically rare. Subscribe and join the few who actually get it.